Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of Waypoint, the AirMed&Rescue podcast. I'm your host, John Adams, and today I'll be talking to Kai Peter of SPAES, head of 21J Design Organisation. It's a pleasure to speak with you, and thank you for joining me. I wanted to start by asking you how you got into engineering and what is it about aviation particularly that interests you?
Well, thank you for having me. What got me into aviation, I think ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. So this spark, I guess, is due to my parents letting me watch Top Gun at a very little age, I guess. So
Yeah.
I think that's where the spark originated from. So when the compulsory military service we had in Germany at the time came around, I was not fit for duty because of a medical condition I had it as a kid.
Mhm.
So after that, I kind of drifted and studied various subjects back home until I met an instructor who was a part owner of a company near the Bodensee in Friedrichshafen, who brought me in his company, and there I finished my aerospace engineering. So that's the construct that after all got me into aviation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a familiar story. Similarly, myself, I was going to be a military pilot, but as you can see, I wear glasses, and
Yeah.
so I was denied access at that time. When designing an air ambulance cabin interior, what are the key considerations that you as a designer have to take?
Well, there are, as you could imagine, sort of many different aspects and key factors. Or the most important, or one of them, is the base customer requirement, what they think or need in their operation in the aircraft, and that the final design is easy to use and provides the functionality the operator needs or has to provide for the service they offer. On top of that, the regulations from the operators themselves or the contractors they work for have sometimes different regulations they put in, so that the service providers need to fulfill these as well. And then that's where we come in, especially as a design organization, the requirements from the aviation authorities. So in Europe, it's the EASA mainly, for the European area. That's where the certification dialogues with the authorities come in, which we provide and lead. And more of the technical aspects of the key factors are the space and weight limitations. In aviation, it's almost present every time.
Yeah,
And of
absolutely.
course, the nature of bigger projects, the cost and time factor as well.
Yeah.
So these are the most critical ones.
It involves a lot of coordination, really, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Yeah. And sometimes the interest groups don't have the same ideas, and you sometimes have to work to bring them together.
Absolutely. So you mentioned size and weight considerations. What sort of differences do you find when designing the interior for an air ambulance for maybe a fixed wing jet versus maybe a helicopter?
Well, the base requirements are not all that different. Originating from the EASA requirements, there are different set of rules or a certification basis for larger aircraft or on smaller rotorcraft. They are separated in large aircraft, large rotorcraft, small rotorcraft. But the general aspects for consideration for the certification are all the same. So,
Right.
for example, for emergency landings, each certification basis for aircraft or helicopter has different loads that need to be within the limit of the material used in the construction. They all sum up some of the loads, but the loads themselves differ from time to time.
Yeah.
But the general aspects remain the same. In that area, the main aspect where they differ is the size and the weight limitations. Sometimes especially with smaller aircraft or helicopter,
Yeah.
you don't have that much weight you can play around with.
No.
For example, if you have a smaller Learjet, you need to size and weight the design in a meaningful manner.
Yeah.
But if you, for example, modify a 747, then you have much more freedom.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
the smallest aircraft that you've designed for?
Well, we mainly design helicopters.
Yeah.
So we almost always operate in smaller spaces.
Yeah.
But one of the smallest cabin configurations, still one running right now, is for the Bo 105.
Yes. Right. Okay.
So, and in especially in these older models, you don't have that much space you can design a medical cabin.
And so the design for these cabins, what benefits can be found by reconfiguring an existing aircraft over one that's sort of already pre-configured by the original equipment manufacturer?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the options the original manufacturers do offer sometimes do not align with the wishes or ideas the operators themselves have or need to have to provide certain services. So the aspect of configuration or personalization is not that extensive compared to a custom-made medical cabin, for example. Another aspect is that some or not especially most, but many aircraft in the ambulance sector are not necessarily new purchases. Sometimes other providers sell aircraft to another provider, and then they have to work with the cabin the aircraft comes with.
Yeah.
So I think it's always a need to customize and personalize already existing cabins.
And with this personalization, what's the most common requirement that you find that you're designing? And also, what's the most unusual thing that you've had to configure in?
Well, the maybe we start with the most unusual thing is that, yeah, the ideas and wishes from the operators almost always are very aspiring and have many ideas, and we sometimes need to find a way to maybe tone them down a bit and
Sure.
find a way to integrate the best solution for the small cabin.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the current project where we rebuild or reconfigure a Bo cabin, the cabin itself is not that big.
No.
And for example, we did put in a medical stretcher for a patient, and there were some yeah, requirements or wishes from the customer that we put in additional equipment or fixation points for the equipment.
Mhm.
And at that point, the cabin can be a bit crowded by equipment and personnel. So
Sure.
we have to try to yeah, combine certain aspects of the design and yeah, work with the area we have.
And what are you most uh, asked to do to what's the most common thing that people want from their cabin that you are able to supply when you're sort of redesigning or reconfiguring an aircraft space?
Well, I wouldn't say there is a specific item or design function that
Mm,
all of them require. I think where we stand out or where the special factor comes in
yeah,
is in the customization and reacting to the individual wishes of the customer themselves. For example, if there are any special surface treatments we need to consider for cleaning agents maybe or
yeah.
for especially in the air ambulance sector, the possibility of fluids on the floor. They are not covering the whole structure of the aircraft. Is sometimes something we have to work on or we need to consider.
Talking of keeping it hygienic and the fluids and sort of clinical waste almost, what materials and coatings and things do you have and use to ensure that basically you've got a sanitary working environment
Mhm.
for patients?
Yeah. So one of the base materials, I guess, for the whole aviation industry at the moment still is aluminium. in certain alloys and regardless of it's a sheet or a bigger part that has to be milled down. That is the way it's always have been. In the new age, more and more composite materials to come into the cabin interior and the design. In that regard, the carbon fiber or fiberglass laminates do come in more and more. These are materials we are more and more working with, or the honeycomb sandwich panels are getting more and more interesting because they offer, similar to carbon or glass fiber, structural strength with very little weight they bring in.
Can you explain a bit more about these honeycomb structures?
Yeah, these honeycomb structures basically are another sort of composite materials. They work in a similar way so that they have most of the time fiberglass based material, let's say, and resin that's holding them together. And in the honeycomb material part, there is a top layer and a bottom layer where these usual type of fiberglass laminates are situated, and the layer in between is sort of a honeycomb structure that lies in between.
Yeah. Is it moldable, but also is it flexible in once it's been constructed, or is it rigid and
It's rigid. It's similar to a plate.
yeah,
So, and the production process is similar to a glass fiber, laying
right.
the mats, and the core material, the honeycomb, then gets laid on top of them, and the top layer then gets laid on top.
So with these new composites and lighter materials, um, how much weight can you save by using these, and where does that weight saving get transferred into? Is it into allowing more fixtures and fittings for equipment, or is it for larger power relays and things like that? So how do you balance all these different factors?
Well, that also depends on the design or the cabin configuration for each individual customer, because
Mm.
sometimes we sort of need to revert to these composite materials to save enough weight in one aspect of the design to generate more room for maybe heavier parts or parts that are stressed more in the operation, so that we can make them sturdier or full metal or bigger metal parts. So it's within the design a trade-off between different design aspects. Sometimes it's just to save weight to maybe bring on another for the medical operation another oxygen bottle, or to maybe give the operator a few kilometers more of range.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes it's oftentimes a trade-off between design aspects.
Yeah. And for a project, I know none of these projects are standard or or are the same. What's the sort of rough lead time from the moment you get an inquiry into delivering a final product? Is there a sort of a standard period, do you think?
Yeah, the main topic for these type of configurations, and not necessarily is the design and the construction, depending on the
Mhm.
project and the scope. Of course, the design and construction can take quite a bit of time, but most of the cases, it's the communication and certification with the authorities.
Yeah.
So especially if the design of the cabin gets more and more complex,
Yeah.
the authorities do want to know more and more and need to see more and more tests. And these sometimes discussions and yeah, the finding the consensus of the way for the certification can take quite a time. Sometimes it's within maybe 6 or 9 months.
Right.
Sometimes it takes up to 12 or 13 months. So yeah,
Yeah. So you
sometimes
must
a
have,
challenge.
yeah, absolutely. So you must have a good or try to foster a good relationship with the
Yeah.
authorities. Yeah. How do you go about doing that? Is it very perfunctory? Are there just lots of forms to fill in, or do you have lots of sort of personal meetings where you go through the designs personally and sort of explain what it is that the client wants and how you can achieve that?
Yeah, so there is an official way, let's say, for the start of the project where you have to fill certain forms and mail them or upload them on the platform they provide for the modifications and changes we apply for. But especially when you have worked more and more with the authorities or the same specialist at the
Yeah,
authority, you get quite close with them
yeah,
and sometimes have personal meetings or meetings online
yeah,
that helps with the finding a common ground. But we try to make more and more meetings personal these days.
yeah. And what are the authorities looking for when they're reviewing a design to approve a design?
The main focus of the authority is of course, the safety aspect,
Yeah.
and specifically when looking at a design, for example, we apply for, they first of all look for the scope of the project itself
Hmm.
and what we already have done in the past, so that they have an idea what maybe is a new design element or certification element in that regard that we have to work ourselves in with new information and new designs, and what maybe are some elements we have done 10, 20 times already and we are safe with them. That is one aspect they look so that they know what they have to look for in the
Yeah.
project.
Right. And you're based in Germany, but you do global
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
work. How many authorities and different governmental institutions do you work with, and do you find that it presents a separate challenge in itself?
Well, of course, the main authority we work with is EASA
Yeah,
for Europe. We sometimes have to work or consider the American authorities, the FAA as well,
yeah,
for the changes. And then some communication or some considerations also made for the Canadian authority.
yeah.
But other than that, our customers do most of the contract or discussions with their authorities.
Right.
So we are in close contact with the customers in that regard so that they can communicate to their authorities, their country.
Excellent. And with your design, your base is sort of very innovative in what it
Mhm.
does. What sort of things are you working on at the moment that's different from your competitors or your peers currently working in the industry at the moment?
Well, when we start a new project or design, of course, we have a look what we might already have designed before.
Hmm.
But most of the time, customers have well, very specific ideas, and we try to somehow start with a blank canvas
Right.
to maybe come up with new ideas on how we can provide new function or new operational capabilities to for the customer. And I think that's something that we always try to redefine what we can do.
You're always innovating, so it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, we always try to come up with the new ideas on how to do certain things.
I think that's probably all the questions I have for you today. If I think of anything else, I will get back in touch. But I just want to say thank you so much for talking to me.
Yeah.
And is there anything else that you want to say about the work that you do that we haven't covered, or the sort of things that Space is sort of leading up to? Is there anything that you want to cover?
Well, we do currently have a bigger cabin configuration that should be done by I hope June or July
Okay.
with the Johanniter Air Ambulance Service in Germany, and that's to date our biggest cabin configuration for the EC 155.
Oh wow.
And we're looking forward for the promotional material to come out. Yeah,
Excellent, excellent. So I'll keep my eye out for that, and
yeah.
I'll let people know when that's ready. Again, thank you so much for speaking to me,
Thank you for
Kai,
having me.
and I'll be in touch. Cheers.
Yeah, have a nice day. Bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye bye. And that's it for this podcast. Thank you to Kai-Peter for joining me. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss our future episodes wherever you get your podcasts.